Sir, I've been watching you. You've been picking up items and not heading toward checkout. Are you planning to pay for those groceries?
What are you talking about? I'm still shopping. I haven't even finished.
I'm gonna need to see some identification. We've had issues like this before.
Seriously?
Fine. Keep
My
your
name
hands
is
where I
Anthony
can see them.
Caldwell. I'm the
Anthony Caldwell was not the kind of man who raised his voice. He didn't need to. He was the district attorney of Haverford County, the top legal authority in a jurisdiction of nearly 500,000 people. A man who made decisions that determined futures, shaped headlines, and sent murderers to prison. But on a rainy Saturday afternoon in the fluorescent lit aisles of a suburban grocery store, none of that mattered. To the store manager, he was just a black man with 2 kids and a full shopping cart, a man who supposedly couldn't afford what he was holding. And in less than 9 minutes, a routine family grocery trip would turn into the most humiliating public confrontation of his life. The accusation? Shoplifting. The evidence? A receipt still in his pocket he hadn't been allowed to show. By the time the shouting ended, the police arrived. Cell phones were recording. His children were crying, and the district attorney, the very person who prosecutes crimes, was being treated like a criminal. Not because he broke the law, but because someone decided he didn't belong, and what happened next would ignite a scandal that Haverford County could never again pretend wasn't real. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was an indictment, not of Anthony Caldwell, but of something far bigger. The question wasn't what Anthony did. The question was why they assumed he did it, and that question would cost the county far more than groceries. A beat of silence, a lingering unease, the feeling that something precious has already broken. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Anthony Caldwell's reputation didn't just precede him, it defined him. Raised in a working-class neighborhood on the west side of the city, Anthony was the kind of child teachers spoke about in the staff room. Not because he caused trouble, but because he refused to accept limits. He was the boy who stayed late to tutor classmates, the student who challenged teachers not out of ego, but out of principle. The one who understood early that the law was language, whoever spoke it fluently decided the rules. He earned a scholarship to the state's most prestigious university, graduated top of his class, completed law school with honors, and took a prosecutor's office by storm, winning case after case through meticulous preparation and unflinching calm. Colleagues called him the emissary because he didn't fight his battles, he dismantled them. Every step of his career seemed inevitable, like gravity. A Haverford County judge once said, "Caldwell isn't just good at the law, he is the law, personified." But even that wasn't his proudest accomplishment. His real badge of honor? His children. 2 young kids, one named Micah, age 7, and Layla, age 5, who believed their father could fix anything. Saturday grocery trips were sacred, not errands, memories. Anthony didn't wear his title into the world. He didn't lead with it. He didn't need to. He believed that dignity was earned through conduct, not announced through credentials. But titles are shields, and on the day he needed his, he didn't think he'd have to use it, because no one expects to be presumed guilty while buying cereal. Haverford County's wealth was old, manicured, and curated like a museum exhibit designed to be admired, but not entered. The grocery store at the center of this story, Greenfield's Market, sat like a gleaming centerpiece in a neighborhood built on quiet assumptions. Lawns trimmed like military formations, smiles that felt like security badges, a culture where everyone seemed to know who belonged and who didn't. It advertised locally sourced produce, conscientious consumption, and community values. What it didn't advertise was the invisible currency of suspicion. Anthony stood out the moment he walked in, not because of anything he did, but because he interrupted an unspoken script. A young black father with well-behaved children in a store where diversity was a slogan, not a reality. Whispers didn't start. Looks did. Subtle, quick, diagnostic, not aimed at danger, aimed at difference. Anthony didn't see them. His children didn't hear them. But someone else did. the store manager, a man who believed he could look at a stranger and know their worth, a man who thought authority recognized itself, but only when it looked familiar. And to him, Anthony Caldwell looked wrong, not because of his bearing, not because of his cart, but because he existed in the wrong place without visible explanation. The cart Anthony pushed was full. Organic strawberries, imported pasta, 2 bottles of olive oil, cereal with cartoon mascots, a birthday cake Layla begged for. To the manager, this wasn't a purchase. It was evidence. Evidence of a crime not yet committed but already imagined. And imagination in America has never been neutral. The fuse had been lit, but Anthony didn't know it yet. He was too busy being a father, too busy believing the world saw him the way he earned the right to be seen. It began in aisle 9, of all places, pasta, sauces, family-sized meals, the aisle where choices felt comforting, ordinary, predictable. Anthony stood with Micah and Layla debating marinara brands, letting his son pick between 2 jars. It was the kind of tiny decision children take seriously, one of the small dignities fathers give their kids to teach autonomy. That's when the sound occurred. A voice, sharp, clipped, accusatory without accusation. "Sir, can I help you with something?" Anthony turned, smiling lightly, assuming customer service. The manager, Evan Rusk, had already closed the distance. Tall, lean, wearing the kind of rehearsed friendliness that looked fine until you realized it wasn't for you. He didn't look at Anthony's face. He looked at the cart, then at Anthony, then back to the cart, inventorying him. Anthony nodded politely. "No, thank you. We're good." But the manager didn't leave. His smile didn't move, but something else did, the temperature. The space around them thickened, like a courtroom suddenly without rules. "Just noticing you've been in the store for a while," Rusk said. "Sometimes people forget to check out before heading to their car." A strange statement, off-key, something Anthony couldn't yet place. "I haven't forgotten anything," Anthony replied calmly. "We're still shopping." Rusk nodded, but it wasn't acknowledgement, it was calculation. He lingered. His eyes darted over the items again, olive oil, strawberries, birthday cake, none of it cheap, none of it suspect. Except apparently the man buying it. Rusk's tone tightened. "We have store policies. I just want to be sure everything you're selecting will be paid for." It wasn't what he said. It was what he meant. "I see someone who shouldn't afford this." Micah noticed first, 7 years old, still young enough to speak truth without calibration. "Dad, why is he talking like that?" Anthony gave a gentle chuckle, hoping to diffuse tension, hoping his children wouldn't remember this moment. Rusk didn't laugh. He doubled down. "I'm just doing my job. We've had issues before." "Issues? With who?" Anthony straightened, not in anger but in clarity. His voice took on that undertone lawyers carry, even off duty. "Are you suggesting I'm stealing?" Rusk lifted his hands as if innocence were a gesture. "No one's accusing anyone. Yet." There it was. The accusation, not spoken, but injected like a sedative meant to immobilize. A choice, submit or resist. Anthony did neither. He did what logical men do when confronted with irrational suspicion. He tried to understand the rules he was suddenly being judged by. "What exactly are you concerned about?" Anthony asked. Rusk responded without hesitation. "Your cart, your behavior, and the fact you've moved items around in a store, where that's literally the purpose. The absurdity would have been comical if it weren't dangerous. This wasn't about groceries, it was about classification. Rusk had decided something, and everything that followed would exist to justify the decision. It was the same psychological sequence Anthony had seen defendants describe in deposition rooms, moments when identity became evidence and innocence became irrelevant. Anthony took a slow breath. He had been profiled before, but never while holding his children's hands, never while aware that humiliation might now have witnesses he loved more than himself. Still, he assumed reason could fix this. He had spent 18 years believing institutions could be corrected with patience. He had not yet learned that belief itself was privilege. Anthony decided to take his children to checkout. Enough confusion. Enough discomfort. Pay, go home, forget. But Russ didn't let him reach the register. He positioned himself physically between Anthony and the lane, an act subtle enough to deny aggression, deliberate enough to claim control. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your receipt for those items." Anthony blinked. "We haven't paid yet." "That's not what my staff said." His staff? Anthony looked around. 2 employees he hadn't even noticed now stood watching, arms crossed, waiting for a cue. His children pressed closer. Confusion, fear, questions they didn't yet have words for. Anthony spoke slowly. "I picked these items off the shelves, in front of my children. Surely you—" Russ cut him off. "Customers don't usually mix high-value products with personal bags." Anthony frowned, scanning his cart, nothing unusual, and then it hit him. Layla's backpack. Pink. Sparkly. Unzipped. She placed it in the cart earlier, storing her stuffed unicorn. Harmless. Obvious. To Rusk it was a vault, a concealment device, a crime scene waiting to be declared. Anthony kneeled to zip it. Rusk stepped forward sharply. "Do not touch the bag." The command was loud, public. Other shoppers turned. Phones emerged, curiosity hungry for spectacle. Micah tugged Anthony's sleeve. "Dad, why is he talking like you're bad?" The question cracked something, not anger, something colder. A realization. There is no version of this where calm protects me. Anthony tried again. "I'm going to check out. You are more than welcome to walk with me." Rusk smirked. "You're not going anywhere until we verify nothing has been concealed." Then he radioed security. Anthony felt the ground shift, procedural, tactical, inevitable. He had seen this choreography play out countless times from the prosecution table, never as the protagonist. The employees watched like referees. The shoppers pretended not to, but they stared. Layla's lip quivered. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" That question didn't crack him. It shattered him. Anthony straightened, his voice quiet and surgical. "You are making a mistake." Rusk folded his arms. "No, you made the mistake." Then, "Security's on their way." Anthony could have ended it right there. He could have pulled out his badge, the physical embodiment of his authority. He didn't. He refused to use power as a shortcut. He believed dignity shouldn't require credentials, but the world didn't care about belief. The world cared about perception. Security arrived like an inevitability. 2 guards, big men, bigger assumptions. One asked, "Sir, why are you refusing to comply?" Refusing. He hadn't refused anything. But refusal was now a foregone conclusion written into a narrative Anthony had never agreed to. He tried one more time. "I am paying for these items, that is all." The guard stepped closer. "So why are we getting calls about a possible theft?" Possible theft, not proven, not investigated, assumed. The kind of assumption that turns men into defendants before facts exist. Anthony inhaled. Calm, measured, deliberate. The part of him that dominated courtrooms flickered awake. "What law exactly do you believe I've broken?" Silence. Because there was no answer. Yet the accusation lived anyway. That's when the guard placed a hand on his cart. Not a violent act. A symbolic one. Ownership transferred. Narrative rewritten. Micah balled his fists. "Don't touch my dad's stuff," Layla started to cry. And somewhere, deep in Anthony's chest, the humiliation fused into something else. Resolve. He reached into his pocket. Slowly. Deliberately. Rusk stiffened, preparing for vindication, expecting contraband, hidden goods, or a weapon to justify every suspicion he'd stacked like dominoes. Instead, a badge, not plastic, not honorary, gold, heavy, unmistakable. He held it between his fingers, the overhead lights catching the seal. Haverford County District Attorney Rusk blinked once, then twice. Then his face drained of certainty. The guards froze, eyes widening as if reality had just been rewritten in real time. Anthony didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I prosecute crimes for a living," he said softly. "Do you understand how serious a false accusation is?" It landed like a verdict. There were no more assumptions, only consequences yet to be calculated. B. The badge that turned silence into panic. For a moment, nothing moved. The store, the shoppers, the beeping registers, the hum of lights felt suspended, like the world had stopped to witness correction. Rusk's facial expression cycled through three emotions: certainty, doubt, fear. He opened his mouth, searching for justification, but the words had betrayed him long before sound could. One of the guards stepped back instinctively, as if proximity itself now implied guilt. Anthony placed the badge back in his jacket, not boastful, not triumphant, just factual. "Now," he continued, "we're going to the register. I'm paying for my groceries. My children are going home." Rusk nodded, an involuntary, primal movement of submission, like someone bowing without knowing why. But humiliation doesn't dissolve quietly. It metastasizes. Something else was happening. Shoppers still stared, phones still recorded, and the narrative had inverted. The man who was supposedly stealing was actually the authority empowered to prosecute theft. In that moment, the store wasn't protecting itself from a criminal. It was creating one. Anthony walked toward checkout, his children clinging to his sides, but Rusk, scrambling to salvage ego from wreckage, followed. "I hope you understand," he sputtered. "We were only following policy." Anthony didn't slow. What policy explains assuming a black father shopping with children is a thief? Rusk froze. There was no answer, because there was no policy, only practice. The line grew silent as Anthony approached. Customers parted, not out of respect, but shock. The cashier trembled, scanning items with robotic urgency, afraid to be mistaken for the next participant in a scandal. Anthony paid. He took the receipt, folded it, placed it in his pocket like evidence. And then he turned and delivered the line that would later appear on every social feed, every news chyron, every discussion thread. "Your assumptions didn't protect this store, they exposed it." He walked out. The doors opened like an exhale, but the story didn't end in the parking lot. Because humiliations born in public rarely die in private. Someone had recorded everything, someone already uploading it, and within hours, the world would know. Anthony thought the worst was over once the automatic doors slid shut. He was wrong. The real incident didn't happen in the store. It happened online. By the time he buckled his children into their car seats, a teenager who'd filmed the entire confrontation had already posted it to TikTok, captioned, "Black dad accused of stealing groceries. Turns out he's the district attorney." The algorithm smelled blood. Within 20 minutes, it had 10,000 views. Within an hour, 200,000. Before dinner, it was everywhere. Zoom-ins, reaction videos, stitched commentary from strangers dissecting frame by frame. "Look how the manager blocks him." The kids look terrified. "He only backs down when he sees the badge." People weren't just watching, they were choosing sides. The store tried to respond before they understood the scale. A short, defensive Facebook post appeared on Greenfield's Market's page. "Our staff followed standard procedures to prevent theft. We regret any misunderstanding." It didn't say the words people demanded. "We were wrong. We were biased. We are accountable." So the world filled in the silence with rage. Someone leaked the CCTV footage. Overhead shots showing Anthony browsing calmly, selecting items, doing exactly what every other human being in a grocery store does. The footage didn't exonerate him. It exposed them. Every second of normal behavior contradicted the narrative the manager tried to build. It painted a portrait not of crime, but of delusion wearing a name tag. Then came the police bodycam segment, the responding officer's hesitation upon seeing the badge, their apologies, their awkward backpedaling. The look on Rusk's face, like a child caught playing judge without understanding the rules. Clipped, shared, immortalized. One comment went viral. Imagine accusing the prosecutor of stealing from your own incompetence. The county had a new scandal. Not one born of crime, but of assumption. And unlike groceries, assumptions don't get scanned. They metastasize. As Anthony put his children to bed that night, he told them they were safe. He didn't tell them the truth. Nothing about this was over. The next morning, Anthony woke to 47 missed calls. Not journalists at first, officials, city council members, police chiefs, advisors, campaign donors, people whose livelihoods couldn't afford the optics of what had occurred. The headline now plastered across every local and national news outlet. District attorney detained while shopping with his children. Store accuses him of theft. There was no nuance, no version where the store looked reasonable. This wasn't just profiling. It was profiling the wrong man. A man with power, a man with a platform, a man with receipts, not the grocery kind, but institutional ones. By noon, Greenfield's Market released a second statement. This time, we deeply apologize for the distress caused to Mr. Caldwell and his family. We are conducting an internal review. It was too late. Apology without accountability is gasoline. Civil rights attorneys saw opportunity and smelled precedent. One firm posted an open letter. If the district attorney can be racially profiled, imagine your odds. Calls for boycotts erupted. Protests formed. Not large, but symbolic. Signs reading, shopping while black isn't probable cause. Bias is theft. Groceries aren't contraband. Rusk, the manager, was suspended, not fired. Suspended. People noticed. Anthony remained silent for now, but silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Because while the store scrambled to manage PR, they had forgotten one crucial detail. They had detained not just a father, they had detained a lawyer. He began documenting everything. The time-stamped interactions, the statements made, the employees who corroborated the escalation, the emotional trauma inflicted on his children, the systemic implications of assuming guilt first and evidence later. This wasn't a civil dispute, it was a legal argument forming like thunder, and when thunder gathers, lightning isn't far behind. 2 days later, at a press conference packed to suffocation, Anthony stood behind a podium. Not as a prosecutor, not as a victim, but as something more dangerous. A man who knew the system's weaknesses and now had a personal motive to expose them. He spoke slowly, every word measured like a verdict. This isn't about me, it's about every person who has ever been presumed guilty for existing in the wrong skin, in the wrong neighborhood, in the wrong store. My children watched strangers decide that their father was dangerous. That will not go unanswered. Then he announced what no one expected. A $12 million lawsuit. Not for theft, for defamation, false detainment, emotional distress, and civil rights violations. Greenfield's Market stock, publicly traded, fell 18% within 6 hours. Executives made emergency statements. Insurance carriers demanded incident reports. Employees hired lawyers. The manager? Nowhere to be found. He went from gatekeeper to scapegoat in 3 days. But scapegoats don't erase systems. They expose them. If Anthony had been anyone else, the incident would have ended differently. He would have been handcuffed, cited, charged, labeled, forgotten, but this time the script flipped. America didn't just watch a man confront bias, it watched bias confront power and lose control of the narrative. People began asking questions that bruised comfort. Why is suspicion so selectively distributed? Why is innocence something some people must prove? Why does authority look like one thing and guilt look like another? One commentator said, "He didn't just pay for groceries, he paid for everyone who never gets the benefit of assumptions." Another wrote, "Nothing feels more dangerous than a black man who knows the law better than the people trying to weaponize it against him." The public didn't care about the store's regrets. They cared about the pattern. Black presence equals suspicion. Wealth doesn't protect you from stereotypes. Success doesn't exempt you from scrutiny. Dignity is conditional. The incident exposed an uncomfortable truth. Some people don't see identity. They see possibility. And possibility, when filtered through bias, becomes threat. Bias is not about who you are. It's about who someone decides you are. And Anthony Caldwell became the mirror they couldn't turn away from. Because this story asked a question no apology could answer. What damages society more, actual crime or the eagerness to imagine it where it isn't? Weeks later, after mediations, statements, and investigations ruptured the illusion of Greenfield's market as a community space, Anthony stood outside the courthouse where he had spent most of his career. He wasn't the same man. He didn't walk lighter. He walked clearer. A reporter shouted, "Do you feel vindicated?" Anthony paused. He thought of Micah's question. "Dad, why is he talking like you're bad?" He thought of Layla's tears. He thought of the badge he never wanted to use. Then he answered, "Vindication is when you win. Justice is when the lesson outlives the moment. Ask me again when fathers no longer have to teach their children how to survive assumptions." The microphone trembled in the reporter's hand, because the question wasn't about groceries anymore. It was about the cost of being misread, and misreading has fees society never stops paying. Trust erodes, institutions fracture, children learn fear before dignity, and the accused carry wounds no receipt covers. Anthony didn't want fame. He wanted safety, not just for himself, for everyone who looks like suspicion before they look like human. He walked away, disappearing into a building where laws are shaped, not shopped for. But one truth remained. He wasn't profiled because they didn't know who he was. He was profiled because they thought they did. The question that refuses to close. In the end, Anthony Caldwell paid for his groceries. The store paid $7.8 million in settlements and lost 32% of its market value. Policies changed. Managers were retrained. Statements were drafted by hands that still shook from consequence. But policy adjustment doesn't erase what everyone saw. A man respected in courtrooms reduced to suspicion in a supermarket. So here is the question this documentary leaves behind, one as sharp and unresolved as the moment Russ blocked the register. If the highest legal authority in the county isn't safe from assumption, what chance does anyone else have? And more importantly, how many stories like this never go viral? How many people walk out silent, receipt in hand, dignity in pieces, with no badge, no recording, no platform, no justice? Because justice is not whether Anthony Caldwell won. Justice is whether the next Anthony never needs a badge to be seen as a customer rather than a criminal. Until that answer exists, the case isn't closed.